Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Jump right into it. Thanks for joining us on a Thursday night. With all this talk about nuclear weapons and nuclear energy, along comes a story late yesterday that the United States and Saudi Arabia has reached a landmark agreement to provide Saudi Arabia with a civilian nuclear program and potentially open the door to uranium enrichment inside Saudi Arabia. The Trump administration announced that yesterday. It's a 30-year, multi-billion-dollar deal, and it gives American companies a central role in developing Saudi Arabia's nuclear infrastructure. That is a big deal. And to talk about it is the executive director of the Nonproliferation Policy Education Center. He worked for the Non-Proliferation Policy in the Department of Defense under President George Herbert Walker Bush. He was also a member of the Senate Foreign Relations, also the Armed Services Committees. He is now a professor at the U.S. Naval War College. Henry Sokolski joins us. Henry, welcome to America at Night.
I have a fiduciary responsibility to point out that I don't and haven't taught in any of those places, and I didn't serve on those committees.
Oh,
I do not want to jeopardize my ability to be credible by not correcting that.
I apologize. Did you work with President George Herbert Walker Bush's administration?
I was the deputy for nonproliferation policy in the Pentagon, yes, and I served on several commissions that Congress created, but I think we should leave it there.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. You are, though, the one to talk to about this deal, so we thank you for joining us for a couple minutes tonight.
Okay.
Let's get right into it. Tell me about this deal. It sort of came out of nowhere. Nobody was talking about this, and it sort of dropped out of the sky. What do you make of this story?
Well, look, the deal was signed last November. It didn't fall out of the sky. It was locked and loaded this March. They sent some notices that they intended to go ahead. Everyone was waiting for it to go to the Hill. I think technically it has not yet gone to the Hill, but here's the fun part. As soon as it goes to the Hill, if it goes to the Hill, it's locked and loaded. I mean, the president could say anything he wants about what he might not want to do, but he has a set of documents that have been signed by all the relevant parties. It is a legally binding commitment, no matter what he might want about recognition of Israel by Saudi Arabia, which he now says that's what he wants before he'll go ahead. But if he submits it to the Hill, that's it. So we got to watch to see whether he puts it up to the Hill, because if he does, that's it. 90 consecutive legislative days, it comes into force. Now, it turns out that there are some, so far, secret side letters and understandings, which probably won't be made public, but ought to be. And one of them says, well, we won't do anything with regard to enrichment, which is the thing that gets you within days or weeks of getting a bomb core material. But the fact of the matter is that won't go ahead until a 2-year study's done, which will be just about the time he walks out the door. The thing of it is, if he drops this thing on the Hill the next day or two, it probably won't come into force, however, until after the November election. So the press should pay attention to this, even though they think everything's blown over. It hasn't.
Okay, a lot to unpack here. The deal was announced, and then today you were mentioning President Trump said, we don't have a deal unless Saudi Arabia joins the Abraham Accords. And as you said, Saudi Arabia said, well, we got a signed deal. It doesn't matter what we do. It's a signed deal. This is good to go. So you're telling me that once Trump hands it up to the Hill, that's a done deal. All the negotiating's over with. So he still can withhold it from going to the Hill.
I think that may be the last hurdle, and I'm not even sure about that. But boy, I'll tell you, the substance of this deal, for people like me who are critical of it, is a problem separate from whether or not you get a quid pro quo of recognition. And so I think we need to kind of lower our gaze onto, the substance of this agreement and take it still pretty seriously and ask the question, is this the president we want to set? Boy, because I can tell you, it's setting a lot of precedents. And for the critics like me, we don't like it.
What's the problem with it?
There are several. First of all, by announcing in advance that there may be a pathway to making nuclear fuel for a civil nuclear cooperative agreement with a country that has committed not to make nuclear weapons, you're essentially telling every other nuclear supplier, the Russians and Chinese in particular, but also the French and the South Koreans, well, maybe you ought to be announcing in public you're willing to allow folks to make nuclear fuel as part of a civilian nuclear agreement. Now, it's true in the past, certainly Russia offered to do this even with Iran, but that was like 30 years ago. Since then, everyone's at least publicly behaved. Watch that to change, and that's a real problem. I don't know how you fix that. The second problem is, well, if you follow through and do this deal, you're essentially building a essential, probably the longest and most important pole in a bomb program right on somebody's soil, and you're trying to persuade yourself, well, we'll run it. They won't learn anything. They'll never seize it. They won't use it as a cover to procure what they need to make a parallel covert program, blah, blah, blah. Good luck. History is not on your side on any of that.
Henry, they're saying they're doing this to preempt Russia and China from doing this with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, well, I just addressed that. What they've done is now created a situation where, in fact, the Chinese and Russian exporters have never said over at least the last 30 years or more that they would ever do that. But now we've set an example where they say, well, if the Americans are going to break ranks and misbehave, well, I guess it's the new normal, so maybe we'll do it. Watch that box. So in other words, we created the problem that we claim we're trying to nix. It's a little bit like saying, well, we have to be in the slave trade to control it when nobody else is in the slave trade. It doesn't make sense.
What about the other countries in the Middle East, the UAE, Qatar, some of these other countries that don't have nuclear aspirations? Does this then force their hand in some way, shape, or form?
Well, I don't know about Qatar. But the UAE has a very large Korean plant. And at the time the deal was cut so many years ago, we got them to forswear making nuclear fuel because it was so dangerous and it was so difficult or impossible to, prevent from being diverted. And they agreed, but there wasn't a portion of the agreement that said, well, now, if you give more generous terms to a neighbor in the Middle East, we get to reopen negotiations. And I think you can probably be very concerned at a minimum, if not count on them doing that, because when we cut a deal with Iran, which was not a nuclear cooperative agreement, but in 2015, we agreed to let them enrich, but only under severe inspection requirements. They came to us and said, well, then we need to renegotiate it. And we told them, well, but that's not technically a nuclear cooperative agreement. And they backed down. Well, this is a nuclear cooperative agreement. So it raises the hood on that. And then you have Turkey and Egypt, which have large programs that are being built with the Russians. We tried to get them to forswear making nuclear fuel. They refused. So we could be off to the races here.
What's the benefit for the United States to do this?
Well, I think that ought to be examined, and I'm counting on the Fourth Estate and you to actually sharpen your pencil. The company that we have exclusive rights to sell the reactors is Westinghouse, which is entirely owned by two Canadian companies, Cameco and Brookfield. Not 1 cent of profit from those activities are going to go to any American. Then you say, oh, well, but we're going to build lots of things. Really? Not clear. Why? The major forgings are not made in the States anymore for nuclear reactors. They're made in Japan. So someone needs to actually count, exactly, how rich we're going to get. Now, they've made this argument for China when we cut a deal with them and India when we cut a deal. Never panned out, and those order books were going to be much bigger. So I think you want to be skeptical. You want to be from Missouri. You want to, the show me state. You want to know exactly what you think you're getting here.
How does this conversation and this story work with the Iran story in that they're claiming they only want nuclear enrichment for their energy? Now we're building a nuclear plant for Saudi Arabia. How does this deal stack up with this ongoing argument with Iran now?
It doesn't. I mean, and you're asking the rhetorical question. If we actually think that we can safely do it and trust Saudi Arabia, which is not a country that they end up killing resident American journalists and murdering them and lying about it. That would be Mr. Khashoggi. If they're willing to trust the Saudis, why aren't we willing to trust the Iranians? Now, I don't think we should trust either of them. But if you say we have the way to make it safe for the Saudis, why can't we offer that to the Iranians? And I think the short answer is because it doesn't work and you shouldn't trust them. But we're not saying that. And so you put your finger on a very salient point.
Where is Congress and the Senate in this? They can override this, can they not?
In theory. In practice, it's so difficult. I don't think it's happened maybe in practice maybe once or twice. The reason why is they have to have a 2/3 veto-proof majority not liking it and voting that way. And those numbers don't seem to be at hand. And the reason why is I don't think the majority party, the Republicans, are going to want to buck the president very much on this. And that's going to be a problem for doing due diligence. There may or may not even be a hearing.
Last question. You said you're very much obviously critical of this deal. Are there people within your industry, your colleagues, who are on the other side? I mean, is there an argument to be made from your colleagues that this is a good deal, or are a lot of people feel like you?
Well, calling what I do as an industry is pretty hilarious. I mean, I'm a non-governmental organization. So, we not only don't make money, we have to beg to get it. So I think the people that make these arguments are industry people who I think rightly understand that if this is okay, there are no barriers to trade with anybody.
Henry Sokolski is with us, Executive Director of the Nonproliferation Policy Education Center. And let me get this straight. You worked under George Herbert Walker Bush as the Deputy of the Nonproliferation Policy in the Defense Department. Sir, thank you very much for your insight and your candor. We appreciate your time, and we reserve the right to call you back at any time. Thank you, sir.
Well, I'll look forward to that.
Thank you. Henry Sokolski with us, Executive Director of the Non-Proliferation Policy Education Center. I'll get it right one of these times. Back in a minute, America at Night.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, so I butchered the guy's intro. Let me see if I can get this right. The man's name was Henry Sokolski, and he is the Executive Director of the Non-Proliferation Policy Education Center and a veteran national security expert. Also served as the Deputy for the Non-Proliferation Policy in the Department of Defense under George Herbert Walker Bush. He's also served as a senior advisor to members of the U.S. Foreign Relations and the Armed Services Committee. So, thank you. It only took me 4 times to get it right. Very interesting, though. Brought up some really interesting points. We'll see how this sort of works out. Trump now saying Saudi Arabia has to agree to the Abraham Accords before this goes forward, but it's already a signed deal. So it's got to go up to the Hill. It's a bit of a quagmire. But if you're listening to the White House tonight, Karen Leavitt said the White House, if they don't agree, we don't have a deal. But they already have a signed deal. So there's a lot of a lot of questions about a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia where we would enrich the uranium for them on their soil. And then I've heard, of course, you heard Henry Sokolski talk about why he has some issues with it. But that was a fascinating look at somebody who knows somebody who lives in this space. So, all right, that's that. If you missed any of it, you can certainly download the podcast and take a listen to it again. I thought it was quite interesting, something you're not hearing about in any of the news channels, which is kind of sad, but glad we were able to lock him in and be able to ask him some questions. Stay right there. We've got a show for you tonight because coming up in just a couple minutes, Bootsy Collins, one of the great bassists of all time, slapping the bass. He's a rock and roll Hall of Famer. He is the man, Sex Machine. Yeah, no, he's one of the best, one of the great funk, R&B, jazz, fusion bassists. And he's out with a new album. He's also out talking about his struggles with mental health. So we'll get into talk to him about that. Then, next hour, we're going to talk to Beau Dure, who was a USA Today soccer writer. He wrote a book called The U.S. Will Never Win the World Cup. And so we asked him about that after the great run that the U.S. had with the World Cup. So we'll put the finishing touches on the World Cup tonight. And then Bill Clevlen is in Pennsylvania. He's checking out the home of Mr. Rogers. Bill Clevlen, Bill on the road. And then, of course, we'll do phone calls and all that coming up in hour number 3. So that's the plan for tonight. So we've got it locked and loaded, and we hope you stick around and enjoy the conversation. In hour number 3, we got plenty of voicemails to get to. We got a whole bunch of text messages, and we hope a whole bunch of phone calls. So that's the plan. For texting and for voicemails and everything else, put it in your phone, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Those are the phone numbers. And, of course, as I said, wherever podcasts are found, you can download the podcast if you miss something, if you want to hear it again, if you want to send it to somebody. It's all right there up on the podcast. Just subscribe and get it sent to your phone every single day. America at Night. We're just getting started. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Go back in time to listen to your favorite episode all over again? Now you can. Just search for America at Night in your favorite podcasting app.
He is considered a legend in rock and roll in the history of funk. He's a rock and roll Hall of Famer, funk bassist, singer, songwriter. He rose to national prominence in the 70s with James Brown. He has revolutionized the slap bass. He is the one and only William Bootsy Collins. Joins us here on America at Night. Bootsy, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, man, I'm just honored to be here, and I'm just glad to be still breathing.
Thank you very much. So we could talk to you about all sorts of things, but you're out talking about mental health, which is so important, and so important for somebody like you to talk about mental health. First, let's talk about your own mental health journey. Why is this new project that you've done with Buckethead, why have you focused on mental health? Tell us about it.
Well, I guess it took pretty much all my life and all my career to get up enough vibe to even suggest that, I had those kind of problems. It's like the drug thing is one thing, but to actually admit that you kind of cuckoo, or, you're okay, but you're not okay. So I decided that, I need to talk about that. And people around me have the same kind of problem, and don't want to, let the cat out the bag. And I figured, if I go ahead and kick it off, maybe it'll inspire somebody else to talk about their problems. It's better to get it out than to keep it in.
Well, it's so important to talk about it because once you talk about it, you destigmatize it and you allow other people to acknowledge, because mental health is such a stigmatized disease and such a
Yeah,
stigmatized issue that the less you talk about it, the more stigmatized it becomes,
that's right.
and you give it power. And
Yeah.
so people are surprised to hear you. You were one of the greatest rock and roll Hall of Famers there is, created some of the best music in the world, and yet you suffered from some mental health issues.
Well, it's a lot of us, that suffer from that, but don't want to face it and don't want to talk about it. And I wanted to use my voice and my platform to bring that out of the one, because I know a lot of my friends, they have the same kind of problem, and don't want to talk about it. But I've ran into other friends and musicians that we'll talk about it if I kick it off. So I figured if I could kick it off with my musician friends, I might as well kick it off to the world.
Yeah, great story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
was music? You talked about drugs, self medication. Was music part of the medication along the way, or without you even realizing it?
Yeah, yeah, that was the first medication. That was the medication that made me know we didn't need we didn't need drugs. Drugs needed us, you know. But you don't, you're not really thinking about that at the time. You discovering music, you're discovering how to play, you're discovering all these different things at once, and one level, you at one level at 1 minute, you at the next level. So it's like, you don't really put the two together. I've had a time to kind of step away or step back to look at myself and look at what I've been doing and what I've done. And it was time, because you look at a lot of rock stars and musicians, artists, and just people, everyday people, going through changes. We all go through changes. It's really about the challenge, for musicians to have a challenge to discover a new song or talk about something else, or not playing the same song every day. It's all about discovering something new to conquer. And so I discovered this in myself, uh, not even just looking at people in that way, just looking at myself. And I discovered that I need to challenge myself with this. And so that's what I'm doing with this record and bringing people together. And it's just it's kind of in a fun way, but it's serious stuff we messing with.
Yeah,
And how else to do it better than to do it musically? you
sure.
know yeah.
So the full length album is called Mental Health. It's released this week. You've got a special live stream performance coming up this Saturday, but it's a collaboration with Buckethead.
Yeah.
Take me through how this came to be.
Well, actually, back in 1991, I cut Buckethead's first album, Buckethead Land, back in 1991, and we became real good friends, with Bill Laswell as well. We recorded a group called Praxis, the Zillotron. We did some projects way back in the day. And so we always kept in touch, and we always were so much alike in how we thought, how we approached music, and we were just like an odd couple. We'd walk in restaurants and people would die laughing, fall on the ground, and we would be dying laughing too, because we know what they're laughing at. Because can you picture those two just walking into a regular restaurant, you know,
Right.
and no instruments, just walking into in there to get some food, or pulling up at the what do you call drive through, and watch people freak out. And so we had so much fun with that. And then I realized it was serious. Things were happening to us that we never really dreamed of. And so I myself, I started to face it, and I started to realize things about myself that I wasn't aware of. And now I want to challenge that. And Buckethead, he's in the same boat. We're both are so much alike, but people would never understand that, you know. So I wanted to do something that was entirely against the grain of how people thought about Bucket and how they thought about me, because that's really what we're facing with this mental health thing. It's something you don't want to face, but it's true. It's there, and we have to deal with it.
And so the music came together. Did you guys sit down at the drive-through and figure this out? Did you sit in the studio and just start rapping? How did this happen?
Okay. So, we always been throwing music back and forth at each other, So Bucket came in town and, stayed here for a couple of weeks. And I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we got the studio here at the on the property. And so, he feels safe. I feel safe, and we really just vibe together. We get in the studio and vibe and come up with the basic tracks, and then from there, we do our different things, and anytime we get a song that might fit the what we're really looking for, then we throw it in the pot. And so out of I'd say about 50 songs, we came up with 16 that, made the album. And so that's how we came up with it. And then these other artists and musicians that's on it, we either, because everybody's on the road, everybody, this is the time where, you can't hardly catch anybody, free. And so, I started this, when was it, in 2025. And so, just reaching out, putting bugs in people's ear just to see if they were available. A lot of them wasn't available, but I could send the track to them, and they can throw down on it. And that's what we wind up doing. Bucket and I put the basic tracks together, and then we, reached out to people like Dennis Chambers, Adam Deitch, and of Lettuce, Robert Trujillo of Metallica, Billy Sheehan. I wanted a whole batch of what do you call misfits, and so that's what we got on this album. It's like a bunch of bunch of so-called misfits, but they the top of the world about what they do.
Well, and it's also so revealing about mental health, right? Each one of you, it seems like, suffers through this, struggles
Yeah,
with it, finds
yeah.
peace through music, and through your collaboration, you're able to find some peace. And I think your goal, is it not, to other people who are suffering to listen to this music and sort of find some common ground together?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Um, and not only that, just because we're musicians don't mean regular people are not going through this. So, you can use music, you can use meditation, you can use walking, running, whatever your thing is that you do, you know, take time away from it too, because it's a good thing to take a break sometime, because a lot of times, you just got so much going on, so much pressure that you don't realize that, you need a break. Yeah, we call it mental health check-in, you know. So, you can go to the site bootsycollins.com, and
BootsyCollins.com.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's bootsycollins.com. You've also got the live stream event this Saturday from 5 to 7, live music interviews. That's
Yep,
all available. And then of course you can see the song Mental Health on YouTube. And then of
yep.
course where all music is found. Bootsy Collins, a collaboration with Buckethead. A couple more minutes with the legendary musician, rock and roll Hall of Famer Bootsy Collins. When you were
Yeah.
Bootsy, when you were at your zenith and you were playing the sold out crowds and rocking out and funk music and James Brown and the crowds and the women and the celebrity and the stardom and all that.
I was out of my mind.
but did that clearly didn't help the mental health side of it, right? Because you were trying to live up to something you really didn't think you were. Take me through that for a moment.
Well, if you don't experience the experience, you'll never get there. So if you ask me, would I do it again? I would do it exactly the way it was done, because that's why we're talking right now. I had to, you got to realize that the experience is the key, to where you're going to wind up to be. So, I wouldn't take nothing, over all those things I've been through, all those things I've seen, all those places I've been. I don't take that for granted, because if I hadn't have done that, yeah, I'd be just like everybody else that, you get to a point, you just jump off the bridge, you know? And that's not even an option that I even want to, think about. So I have to find a way, and people have to find a way, because there is a way. I mean, I'm a witness to that. I want to be a model for that, that people could look at and say, well, if that mother made it out of this mess, then I know I can make it.
Mm.
And so, that's the thing that makes me feel good about this whole thing. Not that I made it through it, because I had no idea I was going to get through that. Every day, is some other crap flying, and so, you have to continue to treat yourself, treat your mind, your mental health. You have to continue to treat it, not just with medication, but taking a break from all this mess, and we have to encourage each other to do it.
Yeah, that's a great message. Bootsy Collins, the reason why you're doing this interview is because Buckethead rarely speaks, and
Right.
he speaks with his guitar. And
Yeah.
so that must have been some jam sessions for you and Buckethead to be talking solely through your guitars.
But the funny thing about it is we do we do talk, and it's so funny, because it's not just an act, it's for real. I mean, myself, I can, I came up talking like, I was the brother on the street rapping, full of rap. You couldn't shut me up, you know s- so, but Bucket is completely different, which is, for me, is great. That's what I need. I need a companion that don't have the same traits that I have, and that way I can see through it. I can see, myself better, if I got somebody around me that's completely opposite, and musically we're in the same vein, but the way he grew up, is different than the way I grew up. I was out on the corner rapping while, he was like hiding from people,
Mm.
and so it's a different thing. But you don't, like down a person for because they don't do it like you do it.
Yeah.
We got to
Yeah.
learn how to, let people be and let them do how they want to do, and then you do how you do, and then hopefully you can come through.
You embrace the differences. That's
Yeah.
William Bootsy Collins, legendary rock and roll Hall of Famer. He reshaped the landscapes of funk, rock, R&B, hip hop, you name it. He's been
Wow.
there. He's done it. He's a legendary rock and roll Hall of Famer, and he's out talking about his mental health as well as the mental health struggles he dealt with. His new full-length album is called Mental Health. It's a collaboration with Buckethead. It's released this week. He's got a live stream event Saturday night, July 25th from 5 to 7. You can find that on live stream. And, of course, Mental Health is out there. The album is just released this week. Bootsy Collins, what an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Keep talking. Keep telling your story, because there are people out there who need to hear it, and you are helping people when you talk about your mental health struggles. It is an honor to talk to you, sir. Good luck down the road, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You got it. America at Night.
Right.
Back in a moment. Thank you, sir.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk.
Hey, we are out of time. Don't forget the phone numbers, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Stay right there. We're going to talk to a former USA Today soccer historian. Thinks the U.S. will never win a World Cup. We'll put the finishing touches on the World Cup as we move on. Plus, Bill Clevlen is on the road, our traveling correspondent, the America at Night Westwood One traveling correspondent, Bill Clevlen. He is in Labadie, Pennsylvania, the home of Mr. Rogers, and he has got a story to tell. We check in with him every Thursday, and I have a feeling tonight he will not disappoint. So we get all that, and then, of course, your phone calls in hour number 3, which is phone calls, text messages, voicemails, and everything else. So stay right there. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right, stay right there. We are going to be checking in with former USA Today writer on the World Cup, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and where does the U.S. go from here? Some news, though, tonight. According to Axios, Donald Trump is close to making a decision on a massive attack on Iran. President Trump told Axios tonight that he's seriously considering restarting major combat operations in Iran, including strikes that would be bigger than the ones carried out so far. In an interview, Trump acknowledged that such a decision would have consequences and stressed that he hasn't made the decision yet. One of the decisions he did make is that he has announced that they're going to go ahead with tariffs of 10% and 12.5% on imports from 60 countries, accounting for 99% of total imports. This is the clock is running out on the stopgap levels after the Supreme Court said he couldn't just arbitrarily use tariffs and that he needed Congress's approval. But he's, again, using some type of loophole when it comes to countries trying to ban forced labor imports. So more on that as we find out more. But he's sticking to his whole tariffs idea. Don't look for prices to come down anytime soon with more tariffs on the way. Stay right there. America at Night. We're just getting started.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Milhaven.
Well, that's the end of the World Cup, and many people are sorry to see it go. The aftermath, the effect of this year's World Cup. We're going to talk to a veteran sports journalist, a soccer historian, a former writer and editor for USA Today, and he's out with a book called Why the U.S. Men Will Never Win the World Cup. Beau Dure joins us. Beau, welcome to America at Night.
Thanks. Good to hear from you.
Let's talk about the recap of the World Cup. Do you see this? It seemed like that this captured the attention of the non-soccer fan, and that might be the jet fuel needed to sort of propel soccer in this country.
Oh, it certainly did. There's a good piece by Stephen Goff at Yahoo Sports, and Stephen was at the Washington Post for several decades. And he talked about being on a flight in which, as he walked up and down the aisle, all the TVs were tuned to World Cup coverage, and to the point where then when something would happen in the game, you'd hear from the entire cabin some reaction to it. It's difficult to imagine that happening for really anything else other than maybe the Super Bowl. I mean, that doesn't happen for the NBA Finals or the World Series, even though they still get decent ratings. This was huge. The TV numbers were huge. The engagement was pretty big. Everyone that I talked to, even people who don't know what I do in terms of soccer, everybody was interested. So, yeah, in that sense, a turning point in a sense, but there have been a lot of turning points over the years, but certainly a big one.
Yeah. So where does soccer go from here? How do they capitalize on it?
I think it just keeps getting a bit bigger all the time, and people keep expecting a boom. The problem with a boom is that then you have a bust. That's what happened with the NASL, which had Pele and Franz Beckenbauer and all these fantastic players, and had 60,000 people showing up at Giant Stadium to see the Cosmos play, and then that went away because it was just a boom. It takes longer than that. I think that's what people have realized, is that you have ups and downs, and the idea is to make the ups and downs balance out to where you're still going up. Was the 1999 Women's World Cup a big deal for women's soccer? Yeah, absolutely. Did it mean that the U.S. was immediately ready to have a large-scale professional women's soccer league as it does today? At that time, no. I think that Major League Soccer will continue to get bigger. I think there may be more of an interest in some of the other leagues as well. The USL is positioning itself as kind of an underdog rival to MLS at this point. So a lot of people would like to see leagues interplay and have promotion relegation as they do in England. 10 years ago, I don't think that was possible. That might be possible now, which means, hey, your club down the street, maybe they could move up and play with the big boys at some point.
Yeah. Somebody recently said to me, Beau Dure, that the Premier League is owned by, many of the teams are owned by Americans. And
Correct.
That shows you that this is now taken hold.
It does. And of course, it also shows you that Americans have money. And, the teams that aren't owned by Americans tend to be owned sometimes by oil barons or various other oligarchs and so forth. But Liverpool is tied in with the Red Sox, and they've done, I think that's been fairly successful for them. And of course, then on a lower level, you have, was it Ryan Reynolds, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name, who bought Wrexham, the team in Wales that was in the lower divisions. They were in the 5th tier of English soccer, and they decided, we're going to buy this team. We're going to do a documentary series on it. And that team has gone from the 5th tier to the 2nd. And Ryan Reynolds in particular didn't know anything about soccer coming in, and now it's his passion. I mean, once it gets a hold of you, it's really like a few other sports in that sense, that it becomes almost part of your identity at that point.
There's no doubt. The people in the office who are soccer fans, man, they have no problem getting up at 3:00 in the morning to watch a soccer game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book, Why the U.S. Men Will Never Win the World Cup. Let's first talk about the men. Did they not acquit themselves well in this year's World Cup?
They did. They did very well. They did, in a sense, this was about as well as a U.S. team could do until the last game. In the last game, there were off-field issues, shall we say, that I think did serve as a distraction. They would deny it. Or at least a couple of them have denied it. And of course, you're not going to say, oh, we didn't play well because we were thinking about, President Trump intervening on our behalf. They're never going to say that. But that was not the same team. I likened it to whichever of the Rocky movies. Rocky faces Clubber Lang in the beginning, and he doesn't have the eye of the tiger. And so Apollo has to help him get it back. That's what the U.S. team looked like in that game. And I think that was unfortunate. I think if they play Belgium 5 times, they may win twice. So I wouldn't say that they would necessarily have gotten past that point. But before then, they played very well, both just in terms of being a beautifully skilled team, as they showed in the first 2 games that they won, and then also being resilient, coming back from the red card and hanging on to a win against a very determined team. So they showed some of the grit that they hadn't showed in the past. So I think they acquitted themselves very well, but I think there's a ceiling. Is this U.S. team going to beat Spain or France or Argentina or England? Probably not.
All right. So first of all, that was Rocky 3 with Clubber Lang. That's
Rocky 3. Okay.
That's one. And then 2, you think the controversy with the red card and President Trump stepping in, you think that affected the play of the team?
I think it did. I think it just created a bit of a circus atmosphere. And if that's not it, then it had to be something else, because, again, Belgium may be able to beat the U.S. team when the U.S. team is at their best. Belgium's a very good team. But that was not the same U.S. team that we saw in the first 4 games of the World Cup. It simply wasn't. The passes were not crisp. They didn't seem quite as energized. Actually, the one guy who did seem energized was Balogun, who was at the center of the controversy. But he's a striker. He relies on the rest of the team to get him the ball and set up the chances that he converts. And he was very active, but there wasn't much he could do to influence the game. And then there were a couple of bad mental lapses, particularly on the 3rd goal, a catastrophic goalkeeping blunder by Matt Vries, who is an outstanding goalkeeper. And if you want to make another movie allusion, you can go to Bull Durham and say, I don't know what these boys are thinking about, but it sure ain't baseball. That's how it kind of looked in that game. So if it wasn't the controversy over the red card, it was something.
Yeah. Well, we do know this, that I think we could all probably agree Belgium was inspired. They might have been embarrassed. They might have been called out. So clearly they were inspired by the controversy.
They were, and they played not only a very energetic game, a very aggressive game, but they played a very smart game. Tactically, they knew what to do. They had prepared extremely well, and they were prepared for everything that the U.S. threw at them. And you could tell after, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes of the game that, oh boy, they've shut down everything that the U.S. knows how to do. And again, not U.S. not at their best, but Belgium also made things exceptionally difficult.
Beau Dure, our guest, soccer historian. He's a former writer and editor for USA Today. He's out with a book, Why the U.S. Men Will Never Win a World Cup. That's a pretty brash statement. They said that there'd never be a pope from the U.S., and there is. Explain to me why. I mean, we've got 300 plus million people. Kids are playing soccer all over the place. Every year, more and more athletes are coming into the sport. The young kids love it. What's the premise of the book?
Well, part of it is just our history and culture. And so it goes beyond the sports world a bit. For example, one of the items in it is that we are a litigious people. And that has hurt soccer many, many times. In fact, when I was writing the book, there were several lawsuits going on. The U.S. women, of course, were suing the federation over pay. There was a league that was trying to compete with Major League Soccer. They were suing. The U.S. Soccer wound up in a lawsuit with the foundation that was semi-associated with it. The U.S. Soccer Federation and U.S. Soccer Foundation were in court against each other. And that's emblematic of how things are in the U.S. I went to a session there's an annual soccer coaches convention. There's a big, big deal. It's not just coaches there. It's media. It's people who run leagues. If you're associated with soccer, you're likely to be there. And there was a session with people from the German Federation, and Germany was riding high at the time. They had a lot of success building back up after a few failures. And someone asked the man in the room, okay, what's the difference that you see between the U.S. and Germany? And he said, in the US, you have all these different organizations that say they're running soccer. In Germany, he held up one finger. And, for us, if we could ever get on the same page, then maybe I would be a little bit more nervous about my projection, but I have not seen anything to make me nervous about it yet.
Is it soccer fans that I know nothing about soccer, but I work in an office full of soccer fans. Messi is one of a generation, but the team game, they grow up playing together. There's the infrastructure. There's the club sports that they sort of invest in these kids. Is that possible here in the U.S. because of the way the U.S. is set up?
Well, certainly the U.S. youth system has come under some scrutiny, and I hesitate to say U.S. youth system because it's really not a system. In other parts of the world, it certainly is a system. You have professional clubs that have professional academies, and they go out to your son's U9 game, and they say, "Oh, I want that kid to come play for free in our academy," and that's how things are built up there. Here we have that giant middle level between what you call recreational soccer and professional academies. And Major League Soccer has started free professional academies in the last 10-ish years or so. And they've produced some of the players that you've seen on the national team now. But there's travel soccer where and a lot of times it's more about the travel than it is about the soccer. And it costs a ton of money. It excludes a lot of people. And one thing I like to tell people is that no one gets to be a better soccer player in a car or an airplane. But that's what people are doing. I mean, you probably know people who are off with their kids all the time, traveling all over the place. And while they're traveling, are they getting any better?
Well, you've touched a nerve with me, Beau Dure, because oftentimes you talk to parents and they drive 8 hours to a tournament in Mississippi, and they end up playing with their daughter's volleyball team, another team from the town we just drove 8 hours to. So exactly. I'm with you. Back in the day, I get it, but a ball, a bat, and a patch of dirt, and I'm fine. You don't need to, how many baseball fields did we pass driving to Denver for this, nationwide tournament?
Exactly. And there are other sports now. It's tough to compare with other sports because in basketball, the culture is American, is fundamentally American. Europe has made great strides, but that's fundamentally an American sport. Baseball also more or less, but then other sports, there is travel baseball, there is travel basketball, but kids get recruited from their high schools. And, we don't have that here. I mean, there's a kid, the phenom for the San Francisco Giants, Bryce Eldridge, is from my local high school. I don't know if he played travel baseball or not. I know that they won the state championship at Madison High School when he was there, and he was a first-round draft pick. And, I don't know how much money his family had to pay to put him in that position, but probably a lot less than some of the soccer players who've been a lot less successful have.
Yeah. Well, that and hockey, right? Hockey is another one of those high barrier sports where not just the travel, but also the money needed and the ice time and all that type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. And that's also a question of resources because ice time's limited. There are only so many places you can play and the gear's expensive. So that's always going to be fairly pricey. Yeah.
Beau Dure with us. The book is called Why the U.S. Men Will Never Win the World Cup. Last question for you, Beau. Since the book came out a year or so ago, what's been the reaction? People angry with you for saying that? Angry with you for calling them out? Agree with you? What's the reaction been?
No one seems to get angry. I think people understand where I'm coming from. I think people certainly who are familiar with my work know that I'm not just ranting about things. This was a very thoroughly researched book. The spreadsheets I had of historical and cultural notes that had gone into this. It's a very well footnoted book. I worked very hard to make it not an academic paper, even though it had the research behind it to that. So I think people understood where I was coming from, and I think people agreed with it. The most recent review that I read from someone, I think it was on Reddit, said, I got this book before the World Cup and I expected to hate it, and then I read it after we were eliminated, and I realized, wow, this is all correct.
Beau Dure with us is a sports journalist, soccer historian, writer and editor for USA Today, and the book is Why the U.S. Men Will Never Win the World Cup. Beau Dure on Twitter at Beau Dure, where books are sold. Why the U.S. Men Will Never Win the World Cup. Beau, thanks for checking in. Have a good day.
Thanks very much. Bye.
America at Night. Back in a moment.
Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Milhaven.
Every Thursday, we check in with BillOnTheRoad.com. He is our traveling Westwood One America at Night correspondent. And now, apparently, he's writing for Yahoo News. Good morning and good evening, Bill Clevlen.
You know, that really is a long title to have on my business card, all that you just read.
What's going on? How you're now writing for Yahoo now?
Well, I've been writing for them for a while. I do different little travel stories here and there. I do a lot of freelance stuff for folks because, you know, I'm sure most people listening think, oh, wow, life of a travel writer. Guy's got to be a millionaire and live in a 20-room mansion somewhere. Yeah, not so much. You got to do a lot of different things to make this career float, and one is doing freelance stuff. But yeah, the Yahoo one's kind of fun. I can pretty much do whatever I want. Yeah.
Sure. All right, good. All right, so BillOnTheRoad.com, he's with us every Thursday, and you took a trip to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Yeah, this is actually something I did a couple of years ago, but I never wrote about it. And I thought, well, let me put this out there. And I had such a great time. Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, was from a little town outside of Pittsburgh called Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And so I made the trek and found his hometown, and of course found a lot of things pertaining to Mr. Rogers and his career, and it was really fun, especially if you're like me and you grew up watching his Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood program, or you had kids who watched it after school or whatever. It was a really neat trip, and one of the neatest parts for me was getting to actually see, the puppets that he used on the show, which are there in Latrobe on a college campus where they have his archives, and then you can bounce around Pittsburgh, and they've got, there's something I think at the airport, and one of the theme parks in town. I mean, there's just stuff spread out all over, and they really celebrated this guy as they should.
So they embraced him. He's from there, and from all accounts, he was what he was on television, which was an extremely nice man, and gave to the children, and was just a wonderful, wonderful soul who walked the earth. Yeah,
one of the stories I remember from my visit there. So I went to the Fred Rogers archives. That part's not open to the public, but there is a museum component that people can see there in Latrobe, and they do have the, like I said, the puppets and some different set pieces from the show and things like that. But when I was interviewing the gal who runs the archives, she was showing me different scripts and letters. She had these boxes of fan mail that kids had sent in, and she mentioned that Mr. Rogers personally responded to every single letter that was sent to him from kids, which I thought was really cool. But I think the neatest story was, and I think this is talked about in the documentary that was done on Mr. Rogers. I could be wrong, but I'd be stunned if it wasn't included in that, where they did an event where it was the first kind of meet and greet opportunity when Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood first started going out on the air. And I think they just had a handful of stations that were running it. and they expected, I don't know, let's just say the number's 300, right? 300 kids to come out or whatever. And it was like 5,000 people showed up or something, or maybe it was even more. And just lines and lines of these kids who, and you know, you have to know, and you know this from working in radio, and you know, we don't know who's listening. We don't always know how many people are listening, and sometimes you feel like, you know, hey, I'm putting this content out there for the universe, but I don't really know if people are enjoying it. I don't know if people are affected by it, whatever. And I just thought, what a cool thing for them to go, whoa, man, we got a winner on our hands here, to see all these thousands of kids showing up that wanted to meet him. I thought that was a really neat story.
So when you grew up with Fred Rogers, right? You must have caught the tail end of Fred Rogers.
Yeah, no, I did. You know what's funny? We watched it after school. My brother and me, we watched it after school. But I remember, God rest her soul, she's not alive anymore. But our next door neighbor would babysit us, and we'd want to watch Mr. And she always thought he was a creep, and she didn't want us to watch Mr. Rogers. And I always like, what do you mean creep? Like, you know, she was just crazy old lady. But anyway. We loved watching Mr. Rogers, and my favorite part, you know, and this just goes to me being a goofball. My favorite part wasn't the storylines or Mr. Rogers. I liked that little red trolley that went around everywhere. It was on the tracks, and that to me was and so when I saw that in person, that was pretty cool. It was a real throwback to childhood. And so the trolley, if you watch the show again as a kid, or you knew your kids were watching it, you know, they've got that on display. They have all of his characters. There's one character, one puppet that was, and I believe it was supposed to be his sister, and it was Lady Elaine, and she was the one in a little red sweater, and she was as creepy looking in person as she was on the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood show. For anybody that's wanting to confirm that, I saw it up close and in person. That to me was the only downside of that entire show. But yeah, so you can go to Latrobe and you can see the set piece. See the puppets, and it's, you know, some of his sweaters that his mom. So, but then when you go into Pittsburgh, and it's an interesting transition because he would actually, as a kid, take the trolley into Pittsburgh. So that's where this whole trolley thing, you know, came in. Yeah. And so in Pittsburgh, one of the places that has some Mr. Rogers stuff is the Heinz History Center, and it's like their second or third floor. They have this huge layout devoted to Mr. Rogers, and so they have like the big castle that was, you know, on the show, and some of the other big set pieces. And I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Rogers or not, but, you know, they had Mr. McFeely was like the newsy, yes. But yes, they had his bicycle, you know, that he used on the show. And it was really a neat way to kind of have a throwback to childhood.
Mr. McFeely, I mean, what were they thinking when they named the postman Speedy Delivery, Mr. McFeely? I'm not so sure that was the right answer. Tell the story. Tell the story, Bill Clevlen, BillOnTheRoad.com, of the layers of paint they would paint in the studio.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I was having a discussion with somebody there at the Fred Rogers Archives, and this gal mentioned that she had worked in the TV studio where they filmed. So it was a PBS affiliate there in Pittsburgh. And basically what they would do is they would film Mr. Rogers in, you know, the episodes in, I think, over the course of 2 days. And so the first day would be, let's just say it was, you know, the set where he's, you know, in his living room, and you see his kitchen and, you know, all that stuff. And then the next day would be the neighborhood of make-believe scenes where he's got all the set pieces up and he's doing the puppets and all of that. Well, apparently, you know, it was all done in one little studio. So after each taping, they would have to repaint the floor to make it look like, you know, one set or the other. So the gal said to me, she said one of the things that she thought about, you know, because she was there, I guess, on the last day that they filmed, and she said she remembered just looking down at the floor and going, how many layers of paint are on this floor after 30 years or whatever it was of doing this show, because that's how they did it. They just would paint, repaint, paint, repaint, repaint. And I thought that was pretty neat.
I read that in your story, and I'm like, well, clearly he doesn't mean they repainted every single time they filmed, but yes, every single time they filmed, they had to repaint the floor so they could get the same set every day. Well, that's a weird story. Okay, question from the text line, Bill Clevlen. Tell me about the sweater. Did it have any stains on it? Tell me about the famous sweater you saw in this place.
Yeah, no stains on the sweater, but and it's not one sweater. They have a lot of his sweater. Well, I think all the sweaters he wore on the show were put together for him by his mom. And so he donated them all to, or I guess his archives donated them to. So like if you're in the Pittsburgh airport, they got a kiosk that has Mr. Rogers' sweater in it. If you go to the Smithsonian, the American History Museum at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., they've got one of his sweaters. And then they had some of the archives and the Heinz History Center, and I don't know, God only knows where else. The bus station, I don't know, wherever they have them. They're spread out all over Pittsburgh. But that was a big part of his show, was, him changing in and out of those sweaters on the show. What they also had was the little bench that he sat in every time he'd walk in through the door and sit down and talk to the kids and change his shoes. And but what else are you going to do with all that stuff? Huh?
It's his. Go back to Lady Elaine. She was a bit of a creeper, but the puppet game on Mr. Rogers wasn't very strong. I mean, Sesame Street had the puppets down, but King Friday and the Owl. I mean, and apparently he did all the voices too, I guess.
He did all of the voices. He also did all of the songs. And there's a great story. So first of all, the piano that he used, it's not on public display, but it's there in the archives. They've saved it and restored it, and so that's cool that they have it. But he wrote all of his songs. He was a music major in college, so that was kind of his thing. And so he wrote all of the songs that were done on the show. And if I'm remembering correctly, when he was a kid, he had an interest in playing the piano, and his grandmother said, okay, we'll go down into Pittsburgh and we'll go to the piano store and you can pick out any piano you want. And the grandma had no idea that Fred was going to make a beeline to the most expensive Steinway piano that they had on display. And to her credit, she bought him the most expensive piano that they had on display, and he used it throughout his entire life to do all of those songs. So yeah.
Yeah, what a great story. Did you ever see that movie? What was it, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood with Tom Hanks? It's called A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Tom Hanks.
Yeah. I don't think I saw that one, but I did see the documentary where they interview his wife and different people who were on that crew. And if I remember correctly, a little piece of trivia, Michael Keaton was a stagehand on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood when he was a kid. Actor Michael Keaton.
Yeah, interesting. The movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood came from, I want to say, an Esquire magazine article from a guy named Tom Janot, who we had on the show a couple of months back, who has just written a book about his father. But he wrote this article about Fred Rogers, and it's the story of loosely based on this article, and Tom Hanks does a great job. I mean, it's a really interesting story. The article itself is fantastic because this Tom Janot is sort of this fast-paced, hip and happening journalist, and he gets sent to interview Fred Rogers, and Fred Rogers totally breaks him down, and Tom Janot starts crying about his mother and his father, and I mean he just sort of became this journalist therapist, and they became very, very good friends. It's a wonderful, wonderful story in Esquire. But Fred Rogers, I mean, he was. It's almost hard to believe, just like your neighbor, right? It's hard to believe that somebody was actually that nice, but he was actually that nice.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age where people are on TV or in broadcasting or social media or whatever, and they put out this, this impression to the public, and then you meet them in person, and you're so let down because they're nowhere like what they appeared to be. And so this was a pretty rare instance where the guy was just the same way, and really cared about kids and cared about all of the. I mean, I saw the notes, from some of these shows they showed me, and I mean, they were so particular and took so much time into all of these different very important topics that they talked about on the show. And so yeah, one of a kind.
I mean, you got it. He dealt with kids who were handicapped. He dealt with kids whose parents had gotten divorced or passed away. I mean, for a kid back in those days, he was the only one who was talking to those kids, through some of these difficult situations. And so, God bless the man, and great that Latrobe, Pennsylvania, has embraced it. I'm sure people come from all over the world to go see the Fred Rogers Museum or whatever it is.
Well, I mean, and it's a college, and so I have to actually scroll down on my own note. I can't remember the name of oh, here we go, the St. Vincent College. That's right. Okay. St. Vincent College there in Latrobe, and it's a free, you can go in, it's a free museum, and it's not huge, but they have this stuff there. And so, yeah, it's great that they saved that stuff. And, again, just if you watch that stuff as a kid, to be standing 2 feet from that castle that you saw on TV all the time, it's a neat thing and a great kind of childhood memory.
Bill Clevlen, BillOnTheRoad.com. Where is the article? Is it up on Yahoo, or can we find it on BillOnTheRoad.com?
It's on Yahoo, so yeah, just type in Bill on the Road, Mr. Rogers, it'll pop up.
There you go.
So now next week I'll be joining you. I'll be in Springfield, Missouri, on Route 66, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 1 week from today, I will be swimming with sharks. So I can't wait to tell you about that at Wonders of Wildlife down in Springfield. I got that set up today, so.
All right. Well, we hope to talk to you next week. Maybe you'll be rushed to the hospital after swimming with the sharks.
Yeah, if I'm not on, you know what happened.
When you say swimming with the sharks, do you mean actual sharks, or do you mean like radio management? What do you mean by sharks?
Oh,
hey-o. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Clevlen, BillOnTheRoad.com. Safe travel, safe swimming, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, say a prayer, and hopefully you join us next Thursday.
Yeah, pray hard, everybody.
Thanks, man. Good stuff. Bill Clevlen. Bill's on the road in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Next week, he's swimming with the sharks. America at Night, back in a moment.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Where America comes together for a nightly conversation. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right. Iran, apparently, news coming in, Iran has rejected a ceasefire proposal from President Trump that was carried to the Iranians by the Iraqi prime minister who was in town earlier. The failed mediation effort came as President Trump is now threatening to escalate the war, and he's threatening to target Iran's infrastructure. The officials, who asked not to be identified because they were discussing sensitive national security issues, said the prime minister of Iraq, after the trip, followed the recent visit with Trump at the White House. And so he was the intermediary, and apparently whatever the deal was, it was rejected. That comes on the news that the 13th consecutive day of strikes in Iran has just concluded. Iranian officials rejected the ceasefire proposal carried to them by the leader of Iraq, and the explosions continued inside Iran. Iran apparently has retaliated with their missiles to Oman, the UAE, Qatar, and other neighboring states. That's going to do it for this hour. Open phones next hour, 1-844-2-McGraw. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right. Open phones. It's Thursday night. Late night radio like it ought to be. You betcha. 1-844-2-McGraw. 1-844-262-4729. Those are the phone numbers. That's how you text in. That's how you call in. That's how the game is played. We were talking tonight at dinner about Labor Day weekend. And I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I really think we're going to do this. I think we're going to rent an RV and go get lost for a couple days. The little one loves to fish. She loves to fish. I've fished. I have fished. I don't know a lot about fishing, but I've fished enough to know how to hook a worm and, watch the bobber go up and down. But she loves to fish. She loves to fish. And so we're going to rent an RV and then go find a nice little RV site, I don't know, hour, 2 hours away, cook out under the stars, do a little RV, and we thought that'd be a memory she'd have for a long time. So that's the plan. I'm excited. Should be a whole lot of fun. So if anybody has any RVing tips, more than happy to take your advice. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Text messages are coming in. Glenn in New Mexico, not happy with our soccer segment earlier tonight. It's been a week since the World Cup ended, and now we're back at war with Iran. $4 a gallon of gas and $200 weekly grocery bills for a couple. Teams full of players with names that the average American cannot pronounce and have never heard of and won't hear again until 2030. Look. Sorry, Glenn. I'm only doing the best I can do. Sorry if you didn't like it. You know, there's a funny story. When I was doing morning radio, we would often get a phone call from people, and they would complain to management that they got to work at 7:45, and they would walk into their office, turn on the computer, and then listen to the morning show after they were at work. And they called up management, and they were complaining, why was it that we had to continue doing traffic reports after 7:45? He got into the office. He didn't need the traffic reports anymore. So we tried to convince him or explain to him, okay, sir, we understand that you don't need the traffic reports anymore, but do you think maybe there might be other people who need the traffic report at, say, 7:50 or 7:59 or 8:10 or 8:30? Do you think those people should be entitled to the traffic report? And this guy just was adamant. But I don't need them anymore. I was like, sir, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. We're going to do traffic all morning long for the people who haven't gotten to work. I know, but I don't need the traffic anymore. Strange conversation. Then there was another conversation I had with a listener. But shortly after Paul Harvey died, right after Paul Harvey died, who clearly was the gold standard, right? But I mean, Paul Harvey, can we all agree Paul Harvey was the best? Paul Harvey. Good day. I still, when I buy toothpaste, shows you how good Paul Harvey is. When I buy toothpaste, I still look for Rembrandt toothpaste. Because I'll tell you what year it was. It was 1993. I'm getting ready in the morning, and I'm listening to Paul Harvey on the radio. And Paul Harvey starts doing a Rembrandt toothpaste commercial. And it was so good and so wonderful that I ran out that day and bought Rembrandt toothpaste. And still, what is it, 30 some odd years later, I still remember a commercial the guy did in 1993. But anyway, after Paul Harvey died, we were the station that carried Paul Harvey. And they did like a 1 week retrospective of Paul Harvey. And then, of course, the Paul Harvey segment went away. He died. So we got a call from a number of listeners who were very upset with us. And, okay, what's your complaint? Why aren't you playing Paul Harvey anymore? Well, he died, sir. Yeah, I know he died, but why aren't you playing Paul Harvey? Sir, he died. There's nothing left to play. Why can't you play Paul Harvey? I was like, he died. The man died. I don't know what to tell you. He was very upset that we weren't playing Paul Harvey anymore. I don't know what to tell. We tried to tell him the man died. There is no more Paul Harvey. That's why we did the retrospective last week, and that's why we lamented the fact that he's no longer alive and sad that he died and an end of an era and one of a kind and cultural icon. The man was very upset that we weren't going to play Paul Harvey anymore. Strange world. All right. Apparently, Jerry is upset with me as well on the voicemails. Let's go to Jerry. Jerry, you're on America at Night. What's the matter? Jerry? That didn't sound like Jerry. Jerry's on the voicemails.
You're obviously just a Democrat plant. And I turned off my radio because of you and your people. And the people that pay you obviously bought that radio station. You're nothing but a Democrat transplant. And I turn off my radio. I'll tell you what, old Joe Bohannon, he was a good guy. You're nothing but a Democrat spokesman and a puke. And I'm not threatening you at all. But you're not an American. I listen to your show enough. You are not an American at all. You're a Democrat. You're a Democrat stooge. You're a stooge for the Democrats. Enough said.
What did he call Jim Bohannon? What did he call Jim Bohannon? All right, I'm a stooge. So there you go, Jerry. Sure, I'm disappointed you stopped listening to the show, even though you recited 4 different things I've said over the last 3 weeks. Jerry, get some sleep and drink some coffee. Let's try Steve in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Steve, what do you got for us?
Wanted to point something out. You just had a caller talking about the Save America Act and about having to provide proof of quote-unquote citizenship. That is only required when you are registering to vote. So the thought process there is that would keep illegals or unqualified people from being able to register to vote because maybe they got a driver's license in a state, so they have a driver's license already, and then now they intend to take that driver's license and go register to vote. If you're already registered, what will happen is you will go to your polling site, you will show your ID, and they'll look at that and say, okay, this is you, it looks like you, and you'll be able to vote. So you will not actually have to show a birth certificate or something like that or a passport to vote. And then the third part of it is to go through the registrations and remove all these dead people and move the people that have moved. They're no longer living in that district or they moved out of that state. So, in my humble opinion, all those things are reasonable and they should be done.
Yeah, from everything I'm reading on the SAVE Act, you must show your citizenship papers when you register, but you also have to show your citizenship at the polls. And I think there are only 2 or 3 or 4 states that have the citizenship moniker on your real ID. So everything I'm reading tells you now the SAVE Act it's obviously changed and it's not passed, but from everything I'm reading in the SAVE Act is you have to show proof of citizenship when you vote, not just when you register. And the real ID, you would have to bring something more to the table in all but 4 states. Now, here's the interesting thing about this, is when you do a Google search, you can Google and have any answer you want pop up, which is, we're not all dealing with the same facts. But so it's almost impossible to answer the question. But that's why we had the guest on the other night. I will try and find somebody else. But it doesn't matter who I find. Whatever credibility they have, people aren't going to believe them. Because if they say something that you don't believe or one doesn't believe. So it's very hard to have a conversation where half the country doesn't believe anything the other guy says. So it's very difficult. But from everything I'm reading, in terms of legitimate news organizations, you would have to show proof of citizenship when you vote. And that means the real ID the government handed us would not be sufficient enough, all in except 4 states or so. Anyway, it ain't going to pass anyway. Republicans don't have the votes, and John Thune's not going to bring it up, and they're not going to pass the filibuster. So I don't have a problem with showing an ID when you go vote. I have no problem with that. I know some states, most states have it, most states don't. And purging the voter rolls, I mean, states do that anyway. So, I don't have much problem with that. Did you see where Ken Paxton got in trouble? Apparently, Ken Paxton, the Republican Senate candidate, is registered to vote in 3 different places. So he's under the gun for having a registration in 3 different places. So tried to answer that question, I guess, in some news conference, and it kind of went haywire. But anyway, we'll wait and see. All right, stay right there. America at Night, back in a moment.
Give McGraw a piece of your mind. Call now, 844-262-4729. Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of the conversation on America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, let's go to the phones here. We got Catherine in Vancouver. Catherine, welcome to America at Night.
Hey, I got a tip for you for RVing.
Yes.
You know how you always see these movies and people are always broken down, and then there's always bad things happen. I don't want to see that happen to you. So you know what I would do? I would get a safety check. I would take it to a garage and pay them the money to do a safety check on it, because I wouldn't.
Well, I'm not renting from the guy down the street. I'm renting from a reputable RV place, so they're going to do the safety check for me.
Well, you never know.
You never know. You can never be too safe. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to see anything bad happen to you guys.
No, I hear you. Or the suggestion that was made today that we would just RV in the driveway.
Oh, that would be fun. You'd see a lot of stars. Yep.
Yeah. You just RV in the driveway, and then that way you just bring it home. You put it in the driveway. You sleep in the driveway. And you bring it back.
Might get a flat tire. You might get a flat tire though.
Catherine in Vancouver, thanks. Tony in Montreal. Tony, welcome to America at Night.
How you doing, man?
Good.
I
How are
don't
you?
know why you got. Yeah, sorry. Good evening, and I was just listening to your comments. I was just the Ken Paxton thing. Like, you said that Ken Paxton is registered in 3 districts. I don't know why you're so concerned with that. I mean, it's par for the course. He's tripolar, so 3 different people vote in 3 different sections.
That's a good one.
Why are you Americans getting so uptight? Let the guy go. I mean, if he's bipolar, let him vote in two districts. All the merrier. If we're gonna have fixed elections, let the bipolars and the transgenders with 82 transgender personalities also vote. That's 82 districts, man. Remember, there's every day there's an extra gender. So imagine if you had to figure this out. It could be 82 districts. Anyway, by the way, your voter ID thing in Canada, it's really simple. You show up with an election card. You get it mailed to your house. You show up to the polling station with an ID that says you have an electrical bill at that location with your name on it, McGraw Milhaven, at 235 Alice Carrière in Beaconsfield, Quebec, and bang, you can vote. And if you're not if you don't have a bill, then how about your driver's license that says the same thing? Or how about this, a passport, and you vote. And that's simple as that. And at the end of the night, McGraw, before the polls close down in Halifax, and when it gets to central Canada, they're already forecasting a federal election victory for Party A or Party B. That's how quick it's done. The electronic system works very well. You can go to the polls a week, or I don't know, it might be a day, a week before, or 3 weeks before, if you're not able to go on that day. And as simple as that. I don't think we have these mail-in things like you guys have, but the elections run pretty good. I don't know. I'm pretty sure we have some problems too. There's been some ballot stuffing and ballot box things in the referendum year. That was really kind of dirty politics, but that's par for the course. Quebec's always had dirty politics. I just wanted to say one other thing. Like when you were talking about your country, and I'm listening up in Canada, I think your country is a great country. I don't see all of the negativity. I don't understand all of the hatred towards Trump. I don't understand the hatred towards the country, because I thought the people of your country were the backbone of your country. And politicians, sometimes like in Canada, I don't particularly like either the Liberals or the Conservatives. I do tend to love our country, and I think the people are great.
Well, Tony, this country's in a bit of a funk. We have to hate the other guy, right? Like a sports team, right? They have a big rivalry. I love my guy. No matter what my guy does, I love him. No matter what your guy does, I hate him. So that's why you have the vitriol of Biden or the vitriol from Trump and everything else. And then you sort of play that game. I don't play that game. I don't believe in playing that game. And so that's why I get criticized, because I don't play the game. But, Tony, thanks for checking in. Stay right there. Lots more to get to. More text messages, more phone calls. A couple more voicemails as well. America at Night, back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Happening in your world. Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, text messages. Karen in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina checks in on the text line 1-844-262-4729. McGraw, greetings from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Have you ever been here? I've never been to Myrtle Beach. I've been to Charleston, South Carolina, just down the road. Couple of times. Foley Beach, Foley Beach, I believe. We've been there a couple of times. And, of course, while I was there, I had to take a tour of Fort Sumter, the historical Fort Sumter. So I've been to Charleston a couple of times. Haven't been to Myrtle Beach, but I've heard good things about it. Kathy in Pittsburgh checks in. Live close to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and Mr. Rogers is loved in this area. St. Vincent's College in Latrobe is home to the Fred Rogers Institute and Archive. It's a great place to visit, all free, and an interesting place. There you go. New Mexico checks in. Are you a stooge for the Democratic Party, or are you a red-blooded American? Wow. Let's see here. Let's go to the phones here. We've got Donald, east of the Rockies. You're on the air, Donald.
From the heart of America, actually, in fact, which is east of the Rockies for everybody.
All right.
Hey, first of all, I want to thank you, McGraw, for agreeing with the President of the United States finally on the voter ID. It should be really simple. One vote, one person, one vote. Would you agree to that?
I would think everyone agrees with that, even those liberals out there.
Would you agree that only citizens of the United States should vote?
As the law of the land states, only citizens should be allowed to vote.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, that's the law of the land, yes.
Okay, fair enough. Would you also agree that over the last however many years from Biden, Bush, and Obama, that hundreds of thousands of illegal people are here in the United States? Unregistered people, illegal. Would you agree to that?
Undocumented people? Yes, there are thousands, and I'd say millions.
We can parse the words. They're illegal.
I think there's millions of them that are here.
Well, you might very well be right, in fact. So that's why I thank the president for taking this very seriously, that we need to identify these people. Only citizens should be able to vote. You just agreed with that. So
yes, everyone agrees with that.
Well, clearly they don't.
Name me one person out there who has gone on the record and said that they're in favor of non-citizens voting.
Pretty much every Democrat politician.
No. I need names.
Pelosi.
I need names.
Let's go with that.
Nancy Pelosi has said that she's in favor of non-citizens voting. Where did she say this?
Well, she said it on October 31st, 2002, at a political convention in San Diego, which I was at, actually. Which I'm pulling your leg on that. I have no clue when that was, but you know the deal.
No, I don't know the deal. I don't know the deal. I have never heard Nancy Pelosi say. It hasn't been reported anywhere, verified somewhere. I have not heard anybody say that they want non-citizens to vote. It's just nobody says that. Nobody wants that.
Well, fair enough. And the way we prevent that is to require photo ID and everything else that the Republicans are trying to do, which you do agree with.
We don't have a lot. We don't have a lot of that now. You would agree with that?
Don't have a lot of what now?
We don't have a lot of illegal voting from people who shouldn't be allowed to vote.
Oh my gosh, for sure we do.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Like where are you getting this information from?
Common sense, my man. Come on.
Oh, common sense. Yep. I don't live in common sense. I need facts,
hey, real
my
quick,
man.
Lastly, though, I live in
a factual world.
I've got a hard break coming up, but I do want to comment on the gentleman calling constantly from our 51st state and commenting on our president, how we should do our things. What's that guy's name?
Tony from Montreal?
Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
How does he feel about becoming our 51st state? And you know, you kind of chuck at this, and also Greenland. All this stuff is on the table at this moment. And again, we want to thank the President of the United States, Donald Trump, for every single thing he's doing. And you started off the top of the night. He's got a lot on his table right now, big world matters, but he considers all these little things, from the little voting things all the way up to protecting everybody in the world. So thank you so very much for taking my call on America at Night. Good night, everybody.
Okay, Donald, east of the Rockies. There you go. Let's try Karen in Swan Valley, Utah. Karen, take it away.
The nature of the speech that the president gave the other night on Thursday, you're missing the point in terms of trying to calculate how many illegals vote. It's about the ways in which China, through Venezuela and everybody, has defrauded all of the systems, the voting machine systems, and it's there are things that I can recommend that you hear. They're very well documented, but I'll do that another time.
Yeah, well, China. He brought up China as being this big, bad, terrible influence when it comes to voting. If they're so awful and so terrible, why is he meeting with President Xi again, and why doesn't he bring it up? And why is he buddy with this guy when they're infiltrating our election system? Don't you think he should bring it up with him? He's meeting with if China is as terrible as he says it is, and I have no reason to not take him at his word, then why doesn't he bring it up to China? I don't know. Just a stupid radio guy asking a stupid question. You're meeting with President Xi again. You say you're friends, and yet you tell us that they've had the biggest hacking system, infiltrated our voting machines and everything else. I don't know what to tell you. But if I were president of the United States and I said that this country was infiltrating and hacking our systems, I wouldn't necessarily invite him over for dinner. I would have a much more stern reaction to that man, but that's just me. Doug in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Doug, welcome to America at Night.
Now that NFL training camps are starting out next week, I was thinking about a rule change that should be made next year, and that would be get rid of the punt. Do we really need the punt any longer? I don't think so. You got field goal kickers kicking field goals regularly from about 60 or more yards. Yeah, coaches going for it on fourth down very, very often. I just don't think you need to punt anymore. What's it really achieving? And also make the game a lot more exciting. Just have 4 downs. That's it. You can't punt. It's 4 downs wherever you're on the field. You have to give the ball over.
That'd be interesting if they did away with the punt. One of the rule changes that I heard a couple years ago, I think they should implement. And I think they were studying it, but I don't know where they are. So instead of having an onside kick, which the percentage of onside kicks is like infinitesimal, right? So instead of at the end of the game, you score, you're down by 3, there's 6 seconds left, there's 10 seconds left, there's 20 seconds left, you have to onside kick to try and get the ball back, right? So instead of the onside kick, which almost never happens, I heard a rule change where you would make it 4th down and 10. So you'd put the ball, what are they kicking, from the 35 or the 40 now or whatever, right? So you put the ball down on the 40, on the 40-yard line, and you could kick it, you could onside kick it, or you have the ball and it's 4th down and 10. So it gives you one play to go 10 yards to get a first down to keep the game going. If you don't, then the game's over, the other team gets the ball, and they can run out the clock. Now, that would be entertaining, right? I'm not so sure I'd want that, but that would be an entertaining rule change because the onside kick is kind of meaningless, right? I mean, every once in a blue moon it happens, but it doesn't happen very often. But having it 4th and 10 on the 40-yard line in the waning moments of the game, you have one chance. You get the first down, you keep going. You don't get the first down, the game's over. I don't know. That's a pretty cool rule change. William in Texas. William, welcome to America at Night.
I have to bring up a question that has been plaguing mankind for decades. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Well, the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council declared hot dogs are not sandwiches. They have their own unique category. However, it could be a type of sandwich that has bread and filling. Some even say it's a taco. Wow, my head's going to explode. Even the great Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, I understand minds more scholarly than mine have said a hot dog is a sandwich. Some say, who cares? Well, just ask anyone who likes hot dogs and sandwiches, and they're going to give you an opinion. I don't know. I'm not going to say. All I know is I love a great dog.
I love a great, funny you mention that. I love a good dog. Is a hot dog a sandwich? All right, let's break this down for a second. The Earl of Sandwich was the man who invented a sandwich, right? He had the piece of meat. He put 2 pieces of bread on each side of the meat. The Earl of Sandwich then dubbed the sandwich, and here we are today. If you put a hot dog on a piece of bread as opposed to a bun, wouldn't that be a hot dog sandwich? If I had 2 pieces of rye bread and I put a hot dog in the middle of those 2 pieces of rye bread, that's a rye sandwich. Well, I'm eating a rye sandwich. Well, what are you eating? I'm eating a rye hot dog sandwich. right? Or I'm eating a hot dog on rye. I'm eating a turkey on rye. I'm eating a hot dog on rye. I like to take the rye bread, which some people discriminate against rye bread, which is a whole other issue. I don't know why people don't like rye bread, but rye bread's the best. I take the rye bread and I sort of roll it up in the hot dog, sort of like a roll-up kind of, and then I eat the hot dog. I can go either way. I can go mustard. I can go ketchup. I really have no preference. I know there are some people who will call me a communist for picking one or the other, but quite frankly, I could do ketchup. I could do mustard. But you know what I really love? Relish. I love relish on a good hot dog. Relish and brats. Brats are another thing. I love me a good brats. And living in St. Louis, I've learned what a salsiccia is. A salsiccia is a brat, just a sort of an Italian brat, a salsiccia. Give me a good salsiccia. Boiled in beer, preferably Guinness. Boil up the Guinness. Put it on the grill. Boil it up in some Guinness. Put some sauerkraut in there. Then take it out of the Guinness and then grill it on the grill. Get some char marks on the grill. Put some cuts in it. Get some char marks on it. And then put that bad boy on a hot dog bun and a brat, and then put some of that sauerkraut that was in the boil pan. Put that on the brat, and you, my friends, have got a good afternoon. The hot dog is a sandwich. I would argue it is. I would argue the hot dog is a sandwich. If I was on Jeopardy and I had to answer this question, I would say the hot dog is a sandwich. Because if it's not a sandwich, it's not a taco. But you could have a hot dog taco. If you had a taco, if you had a soft shell and you chopped up the hot dog, that's a hot dog taco. But a sandwich it's a bun. I mean, you don't call a hamburger a sandwich, but if you put a hamburger on two pieces of rye bread, wouldn't that be a hamburger on rye? Inquiring minds. I don't know if we can answer this. America at Night, as we ponder this. Back in a moment.
Miss a portion of tonight's show? Not a problem. Go to americaatnightlive.com to find a replay of every show. Want to know what's coming up on America at Night? Text RUNDOWN to 844-262-4729. 844-2-McGraw for your daily show preview delivered straight to your phone.
All right, this question about whether a hot dog is a sandwich or not has us all perplexed here at America at Night. Let's follow through this. We had a caller from Texas ask us if a hot dog is a sandwich. And so I'm not the arbiter of all this, but if you were to ask me, here's my answer. After much deliberation and conversation and consulting with our crack staff here at America at Night. If you put a hot dog on a bun and somebody says, "What are you eating?" You'll say, "I'm having a hot dog. I'm having a hot dog on a bun," or something. If you eat a hot dog plain without a bun, what do you say? You're saying, "I'm having a hot dog." That's not a sandwich. A hot dog on a hot dog bun is not a sandwich. A hot dog plain, what are you eating? I'm eating a hot dog. What do you have it on? Nothing, plain. That's a hot dog. Once you put the hot dog on two pieces of bread, then you're having a hot dog sandwich. And here's my logic. If you're eating some turkey and without any bread, what do you say you're eating? I'm having a couple pieces of turkey. Oh, okay, great. All of a sudden, you take that turkey and you slap it with two pieces of bread. All of a sudden, what are you having? I'm having a turkey sandwich, right? Now, the big question is, what happens if you take that same turkey and instead of putting it on two pieces of bread, you put it in a hot dog bun, and you're eating a hot dog bun filled with turkey? What do you say you're eating? You're eating a turkey sandwich? You're eating a turkey sandwich. So it's, right? I guess you wouldn't say I'm eating turkey on a hot dog bun. You would say, I'm having a turkey sandwich, and then someone would say, on what? And you're like, on a hot dog bun. I'm having a turkey sandwich on a hot dog bun. I'm having a turkey sandwich on rye. I'm having a turkey sandwich on a hot dog bun. So I think for a hot dog, It depends on the bread. If it's in a hot dog bun, it's a hot dog. It's just a hot dog. But once you slap it with 2 pieces of bread, that's when it becomes a hot dog sandwich. Or 1 piece of bread. That would be an open sandwich then. Michael, you'll get the last word on all of this. Welcome to America at Night.
Hey, McGraw. I had a few thoughts on the guests from earlier. I enjoy your show, by the way.
Thank you.
About the soccer. I'm a huge soccer fan in the United States. But one of the reasons I think personally the sport does not grow in the United States and we won't ever win the World Cup is because of a lot of people in the United States, when they first think of watching a soccer game, they turn to like the Premier League or Real Madrid or something instead of watching soccer teams here in the United States, like MLS teams and stuff.
Right.
And it's like you don't have to go far to watch what's in the United States. Just support what you got here as well, and the game will grow. If it was big as the NBA, it would totally, or NHL even, we would totally dominate. It doesn't even have to even be NFL level.
Well, I'll say this. St. Louis got an MLS team, and they put it on a Friday night Apple TV paywall. You're not going to grow the game for people who don't know soccer unless you make it so that it's accessible. Yeah, the super fan will get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch the game, but the average fan, I was all excited hey, I'll watch this, but then they made it on Friday nights or Saturday nights behind a paywall, and I was like, it's too confusing. I'll just watch a movie or I'll watch a ball game. So I think soccer's still got a ways to go. But for the people who love it, they do love it. Michael, thanks for checking in. All right, we're done. I might go get a hot dog sandwich on a rye. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. Don't forget the voicemails. We're always open with the voicemails, 1-844-2-McGraw or 1-844-262-4729. This is America at Night on Westwood One.